dancing with me, but Andrew's just sitting there like he doesn't know what we're doing. And here we are back on Movies Down Memory Lane. I'm Stephen Billings, and here I am with two of my best friends, Andrew Cabral and Dan Skip Allen. How you guys doing?
Great. I miss you. I haven't talked to you in quite a bit.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I just got done talking to you today for like 3 hours while I was working. And Dan just got done watching the Odyssey for the 10th time. 10th time?
Yeah, well,
in a row? In a row?
Okay. 3 times. We have Cinemarks in our area. I'm gonna go to a cinema. I might get to see it a 4th time. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm jealous. If I could get out to see any movie more than once, ones that I really like, that would be a miracle these days.
Yeah, I used to go multiple times. Sometimes, like I don't know what's your record, Stephen, of how many times going to see the same movie.
I think the same movie that I've seen the most times in theater is probably Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh,
I think I went to the theater like 6 or 7 times to see that movie.
Damn.
And it was because it was playing at like a second run theater, and I could go and watch it for like $2. So
I miss those theaters.
I miss being able to take my friends and be like, hey, let's go see this movie. It costs $2. And so I think I went back a bunch of times. Other than that, I would say on a higher profile level, I remember really loving Birdman, and I saw Birdman at least I think 3 or 4 times in the theater because I loved it so much. Also, 3:10 to Yuma, the remake, was another one I think I went back multiple times to watch. So
I think I saw Mad Max Fury Road 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I think The Force Awakens I saw twice. I think Last Jedi I saw twice.
Nice. Last Jedi multiple times.
Yeah, I think I saw the Lord of the Rings movies. I think I saw them 3 times apiece.
Oh, I believe it.
So yeah, but usually, it's kind of one and then move on to the next one because, the way it is, like every week there's usually, especially summertime and whatnot.
Especially with Dan, I'm surprised Dan sees the same movie in such a short amount of time when he has all these other movies to cover.
I was gonna say because there's always so much coming out all the time that I feel like you have to dedicate your time to seeing as much new stuff as you can, as opposed to repeating stuff.
My thing is this: I wanted to see this movie, and I kind of was one of those where I was just like, I have to see it as many times in a short amount of period as I could because I know I'm going to have a bunch of other movies, and I should have had a screener in my inbox on Friday night. I didn't get it, so it kind of. This week, I'm sure I will have a couple screeners in my inbox. I'm going to be working a lot. So I wanted to take last week, which was kind of a lesser week, and like, all right, I'm just going to use this week. I'm going to see the Odyssey 3 times and call it.
I was wondering if they sent out screeners for the Odyssey. I don't know if
no.
Only put a kibosh on that.
Screeners, no. Universal doesn't do screeners. They do screenings. And gotcha. I did my screening on Monday. And it was not the best. It wasn't the best theater. So, and the best experience. So I was glad that I had extra tickets for other screenings. So that's why I went. Saw it at the same theater in 2 different formats. So
yeah. Well, that's I'm glad you have that advantage. Asshole. All right, so let's get into it. This. Movies down memory lane. If you've never listened to the show, three friends get together. We talk about the movies that mean the most to us. We try to keep that the criteria, not just movies that we like, that we have some passing enjoyment for, but movies that really have stuck with us over the years, that have really had an effect on us as film goers, maybe even further than that. Like this movie's had a real genuine effect on our lives. That's the kind of movies we try to talk about on here. This week, this was actually supposed to be last month's pick, but because my pick was a Christopher Nolan movie, I just held off and just did it this month to kind of coincide with the Odyssey release. So I chose his. It's a sophomore film, but a lot of people look at it as kind of his introduction, and that is 2000's Memento. Got this version of it, the DVD.
Damn, look at that. You know, I was actually thinking of that. I'm glad you actually have it. So
Yeah.
I don't have to explain to people what it looks like.
It's hard to get anything out of it.
It looks a little tight.
It's tight. Yeah.
Oh, you have the VistaVision version. Oh,
Yeah,
cool. I have a handful of VistaVision editions, but I don't have that one.
Yeah, I can't even get it out.
I
I don't think I can ever watch this again.
Yeah.
But it's like got like his notes. You know, it's got like his notes from when he's like taking.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the 2-disc DVD special edition. That
and
has
I think I bought the Blu-ray and replaced it and put it in here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that one, I think, famously was re-released after the initial release, and it has like a Christopher Nolan commentary is in there, and then I think like the original short story done by Jonathan Nolan, I think, is in there as well. They re-released it. I actually went down a rabbit hole. They re-released this movie a couple of times, and initially it was released by Sony, I think, and then released by Lionsgate. And Lionsgate also put out a 10th anniversary Blu-ray. Then it was re-released again by, I think, Warner Brothers. And then it was re-released again by Samuel Goldwyn Films. And then
holy shit!
Recently, I heard that Criterion has the rights now.
Really?
That's what I saw on IMDb. If you go onto IMDb
Ooh.
and you all of the production companies that have the rights to like international distribution in different countries, if you scroll all the way down, you will see the home media rights, and the most recent one is Criterion. So don't.
I was really thinking it because I know there was a 4K out there somewhere, and I was thinking about it, but
I'm
gonna wait now.
That was put out in Spain last month, I think.
Well,
so
I think
it's the only 4K.
That Nolan set, is it not in that Nolan set?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
That's the thing with Nolan is all of his, not all of them, but many of his movies are in different companies. Some with Warner Brothers, some with Universal, some independent.
Once you get past Memento, I think he started his relationship with Warner Brothers, I believe, with Insomnia.
Yeah, that's where you get all the Batman.
And then you get all the Batman leading
Inception
up through Interstellar, right?
Yeah. And then Tenet was, I think, the last one he did with Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
and he got so pissed off at them that I don't think he's ever going to work with them again. So he went over to Universal.
Yeah, that was that whole COVID thing.
Yeah, because COVID, they were going to release Tenet.
They did the day and date in theater and online, and he got pissed off. He wanted his movie out in theaters, and it was really a bad time. It wasn't a good time to be putting movies out in theaters at the time. It was like August of that year, which is weird for his movie to come out in August. But so he got all bent out of shape, and then he ended up doing Oppenheimer with Universal. Then he put the Odyssey up for bid, and Universal won the bid, like it's huge, massive bid for the rights to do the Odyssey. But that's the whole story behind all that.
Yeah, needless to say, Warner Brothers really dropped the ball on that because, if you know, Oppenheimer made almost $1 billion. The Odyssey is going to make tons of money as well. And the way the film industry is kind of working right now, everybody needs money apparently, or else they're going to get bought up or by other companies. That's seemingly, but going way back to Memento, his second or his first movie, as Steven said, very interesting movie. Very interesting. But Steven, it's your pick. So tell us what it means to you.
Yeah. So I think, there was something, when I was younger around this time, I was I was like 12. When the movie came out, I was 11, but I think I caught on only a few years later to this movie. And similarly to like The Matrix, which is one we'll do eventually. And it's like kind of the movie that got me into filmmaking. This kind of similarly gets me into that in the sense of like how this movie's story is told. I was so fascinated by its non-linear structure, its backwards way of telling the story, that it creates a mystery where there really isn't really a mystery. You know what I mean? It's really about perspective. It teaches you about perspective in how he tells his stories. And that's something he continues to do throughout a lot of his films moving forward, is that he likes to choose different perspectives to keep the audience guessing about something just by moving the camera to different people. instead of just like staying with one person the whole time. In this case, we are with one person the whole time, but he's deciding to tell the story in a very fragmented and backwards way, to where everything that you think you've learned, you have to know, you don't know how we got to that point. So you got to go back one step to see where we got to that point, and then back again. And it just was a very fascinating. And of course, at first, like a lot of people, you're like, what the hell's going on? The first time I saw it, but I was so fascinated by it as a young person. It's what got me more and more into wanting to write my own stuff. And just, I was just fascinated by the psychology of the movie. And so, yeah, I mean, and from then on, I became a fan. Look at me. I got the shirt right here. And Nolan We Trust. I've been a fan since. And, you know, there's just nobody, I think we can say this kind of now, like he's like, there's no other filmmaker like him. And he's now the biggest filmmaker in the world right now. And I think this just, I just caught the bug early. And he's just become my generation's big filmmaker. And I think it just has stuck with me, you know?
Yeah, he's this generation's Steven Spielberg. And I mean, I don't think any director has been able to, he might have even started this, if I'm not, I mean, if there's other people, if you're listening and you're watching this, or you watch it later on and you have a different, something else to say, comment on this. I think he's the one who really started the fad of nonlinear filmmaking. With
Tarantino started that kind of.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction. See, there you go. So I'm already getting corrected.
I mean, there was even people before him. But
yeah, so
if you're talking about like the popularization of it,
yeah,
I would say Tarantino really very much did that with Pulp Fiction. Yeah,
with Pulp Fiction then, but like I think Nolan took the ball of nonlinear filmmaking and he basically made it his own with films like Inception and Dunkirk and this. And I mean, even in Oppenheimer, it's nonlinear filmmaking, you know, and in a perspective to the Odyssey, there's some nonlinear filmmaking in there because there's the narration is telling two different type stories, but it's going back and forth and so forth from the two types of stories in the Odyssey. But nonlinear filmmaking, I think, is something that is not an easy thing to do. And Nolan really perfected it with Memento. I believe that like this is, if you want to tell a story or write a story and learn about nonlinear filmmaking or writing, this is the movie to watch and learn how to do nonlinear filmmaking. I think how he makes this movie makes sense by going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards and using the photos and then the writing on the photos and all that kind of stuff as a means to an end in his way. I think it's a rare bird, a rare animal that you're rarely going to see anybody that have this ability. And he's done it like 4 times already since.
The Memento is definitely a really good example of nonlinear, but it's also, it is
one of the best examples. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say it's on a track, you know, we know how he's doing it. It's almost an equation like of how he's doing it. Now, some of his later films, he does nonlinear in a more sporadic way. It's not quite in like a line.
Well, Dunkirk is one of the most interesting things he does, where he takes it like
it's more time. It's more time oriented,
and he like lines up a day, 3 days, and a week to where it all lines up to be the same kind of thing. And it's like so fascinating how he takes those stories and lines them all up by the end of the movie. And you know, even Oppenheimer is some nonlinear filmmaking, you know, and some of the ways he goes about court scenes and the interrogation scenes and in that one little room and some of that stuff, you know, and Oppenheimer, you know.
Yeah, he also kind of utilizes a similar aesthetic type of way of filmmaking, a style where the 2 different timelines or 2 different kind of storylines that you're following in Oppenheimer as well as Memento, one's in black and white and one's in color, so that you kind of know, you can differentiate between the two if you're a viewer. In Memento, you have these simultaneous stories kind of moving in two different directions, and they eventually converge onto one.
Yeah,
That's
one's
a tough thing to do.
Yeah. What's crazy is it's like you're technically in the present and you're moving backwards into the past while you're getting the past that's leading
That's
up,
moving forward.
That's moving forward to the middle, like you said.
To where they meet in the middle in the third act of the movie. Like I said, that's a tough thing to do from a writing standpoint, from a filmmaking standpoint. But like you were saying, Stephen, there is a pattern to the movie that once you can pick up on it, you can follow it along. But this is one of those movies where you have to pay attention to it. Like you can't falter and get distracted by other things. I mean, if you have to take a bathroom break in the middle of it, you may break rhythm and it may screw you up. But once you put the disc in, or once you start watching it, you kind of have to stay with it for the hour and 50 or so minute runtime. And then because it's easier to follow that way in one fell swoop than, having to break it up with breaks and stuff like that. But yeah, it's one of the tightest movies that he's done in terms of screenplay, in terms of every single scene having to really mesh with the other one. Like it really has to be on point. The editing in this movie I thought is also really good. There's some excellent filmmaking transitions, some editing transitions that I think are fantastic. And it all kind of does come together in the end. But Stephen, I think on that 2-disc DVD of yours, there is a re-edited version of the movie where you can watch it linearly from beginning to end.
Which I've never watched.
Which I don't think I've ever met anyone who's done that. I don't think it's on this Blu-ray here. I don't think it's on any of the Blu-rays. At least I can't remember.
No, it's not cool.
No, I would have tried to watch it just for the fun of it, though.
I would never watch it in the forward way. It takes
it kind of kills the whole specialness of the movie.
Yeah,
if you're just watching a story go, because the whole thing is like when you get to that third act revelation and it all comes together, that's the moment. That's like the Hitchcock third act twist or Shyamalan third act twist or whatever. Like that's what makes the movie so memorable. If you know that already, it's not the same.
I kind of, when I was a kid, I watched The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 in one just long epic story, just for the fun of it. And it was kind of cool how it fit together, and the same thing with Kill Bill 1 and 2, those two fit together, but he adds new things in the new version of the whole bloody affair and all that kind of stuff. So watching it in a different way just kind of adds another layer to how interesting is that he goes backwards. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
It takes away from the tension that's built in every scene and how, like, trying to understand like the little things, like when he's having the talks with Carrie-Anne Moss and she's like got a busted lip and things like that. You're just like, well, what happened to her? Well, we find out what happened to her.
Yeah.
It's the little details.
It takes away the mysteries.
Because
movies can be so predictable. It's nice when you watch a movie that is unpredictable moment to moment. And with this movie going backwards, like you said, it's revealing things in reverse order. We already know the ending of it. We haven't seen how we got to that point yet.
And the other thing that's makes this movie even more of a mystery too is that our movie's led by an unreliable narrator, which is our main character, who has in himself a memory issue where he can't make new memories. So you're hearing him having this conversation a lot of times on the phone with Teddy, and this is the story that's going in forward. It's in black and white, and you're hearing him talk a lot about everything, especially his tattoo on his hand, which is you remember Sammy Jenkins, and that's where he tells the story about this guy who he thought who was faking this particular similar disorder where he couldn't make new memories, and that he was faking it. So he was there because Lenny is an insurance agent, so he's there to investigate to see if he's faking or not. And the whole story, I'm not going to spoil the whole movie, but that was his job. But as the movie goes on, you kind of start to understand that maybe that story was not really real. That was one he was making up for himself.
Well, I mean, Joe Pantoliano, right from the beginning, you say there's something about this guy that you don't trust. Joey Pants. You see Joey Pants show up in a movie. I don't care if he's in the Fast and the Furious or the Bad Boys or whatever movie he's in. Joey Pants, you can't trust.
Baby's Day Out.
What a
even
reference.
in the Matrix, you just can't trust Joey Pants. He's just one of these guys.
Well, definitely the Matrix for sure. Cypher.
He's one of these guys. He's got one of these faces you just can't trust.
I don't know. I love it. We love him as a character actor. He's great.
Well, he is. He had a great career as a character actor. He had a good run though with like
interesting,
the Memento and Bad Boys. Like he had a good little run there going.
Yeah, you mentioned Joe Pantoliano being in The Matrix. So was Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yeah,
and The Matrix came out a year before this movie, so it's not like they were, relatively unknowns at the time. But both were really good in this movie in smallish but vital roles. Yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss is really great in the movie. When I first watched the movie, I thought she was going to have a bigger role in the movie. Yet again, when you're watching it, you're trying to predict the plot, and things aren't what they seem. Like you said, the unreliable narrative. Guy Pearce is in the movie. Guy Pearce, I think, is still to this day a super underrated actor. He's really great.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask
so many
Steven
things.
the question, Andrew. That's why I want to ask Stephen the question. I says, okay, so Stephen, we've gotten Christian Bale, we've gotten Cillian Murphy, we've gotten Matt Damon now. We had early on, we had Guy Pearce, and we've had some of these people. Where do you put Guy Pearce? And this is one of the earlier things he's done. But where do you put Guy Pearce on the ranking of like best leading men in Nolan films? Because I think it's still up there in the top 4 or 5.
It is because the thing is
phenomenal in this.
I think it's a lot of it has to do with the movie itself.
In
the movie itself, he carries it. So compared to all the other movies and the other actors, I mean, you could make an argument Matt Damon carries the new Odyssey movie pretty well.
Murphy carries Oppenheimer.
Sure. But I think if I had to make a judgment right now, Guy Pearce in Memento might be the best performance out of all his movies.
Wow.
I mean,
that's a high praise.
Because as Andrew said, this is like one of his smaller movies, more intimate psychological movies that feels like. What's funny enough is people complain about Nolan's dialogue and writing so much, but this movie seems. I mean, did he win an Oscar for this writing in this movie?
Or
did he get nominated?
That's news to me. I didn't know.
I think he got nominated at least for it.
Let's see. The movie was nominated for 2 Oscars. Let me see which ones. Interesting, because this is definitely an indie film.
It would be original screenplay if it was.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
I think original screenplay editing.
That it could be. I'm looking it up right now. For some reason, IMDb is incredibly slow and sluggish and freezing on me all the time now. But yeah, even at the time in which this movie came out, Guy Pearce was a pretty, relatively
Australian actor at the time.
I mean, LA Confidential was the big thing he was in.
Yeah, he was in LA Confidential. He was, and then after this, he would be in Count of Monte Cristo, which I still think is underrated. So it was best film editing and best screenplay written directly for the screen. So best original screenplay for both Nolan and Jonathan Nolan.
So I think, I mean, obviously he's gone on to win a lot of awards for some things that he did later, but that happens to a lot of great filmmakers. Their early work gets unappreciated. You go back and you're like, fuck, that movie was like better than these movies that they won Oscars for, and I'm not necessarily saying that's the case, but like, if I had to choose one, I would say, honestly, I'd say, because I think this is the most character-focused movie he's done, other than even maybe like Insomnia has pretty good character stuff in it with Al Pacino. That one's pretty good, but that's very much a studio movie that almost is the least Nolan movie I think he's ever done.
And this is Miramax. This is Harvey Weinstein, which is weird because, he ends up working with Warner Brothers for a while after this, for quite a while. And then he switches over to Universal because of the controversy with COVID. But my thing is like, you look at him as the lead. Obviously, Guy Pearce, phenomenal. You can't. I mean, he's the guy. I love the supporting cast like Carrie Moss and Joey Pants and the guy at the hotel and then Dodd and all these people that if they don't kind of give believable performances, Guy Pearce isn't believable. The story isn't believable. You know what I mean?
Sure. Go ahead, Andrew.
I just think that, and the way in which the story is structured is we don't know anything about these characters at all, these side characters. They're just kind of
No.
there to serve the plot. We're
Yeah.
only really viewing them from the perspective of the Guy Pearce character, whom we've already know is an unreliable narrative because of his short-term memory loss that he has. And even the story that he's telling us as a viewer, like about his backstory, may not even be true.
I
So
mean,
we are just completely lost and just going for the ride.
I mean, really, the supporting characters are really the windows into the truth of what's going on. You just have to pay attention to what they're doing and saying,
Yeah.
because either most of them are all trying to manipulate, our Guy Pearce himself. Like the hotel guy is like make him rent 2 rooms. Messing with him. Obviously, Carrie-Anne Moss's character gets him to murder Teddy. And then before that, Teddy's whole racket has been getting him to murder drug dealers.
Yeah,
and take their money.
Everybody's got their own motives, including Guy Pearce, who's trying to get revenge for the death of his wife, and in his mind about the tragic events around her death are also a big question mark.
Well,
and as the movie goes on and things are more revealed. That's why, like, watching this movie in order, we already get those revelations early on. It would ruin the whole movie. You need to watch it as it was constructed.
And honestly, what's interesting, and maybe I read the movie differently than others, I don't know, but I've always had this perspective that the movie's kind of telling us, does he even have this disorder at all, or is it just him?
That's a big point in the movie that I didn't remember until rewatching it.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that this thing is actually real, or it's just
it's a trauma response.
He does not want to look at the fact that he killed his own wife.
Yeah.
So
he's going through a trauma, and to mentally deal with it, he's created this scenario.
Yeah, he's creating a reason to go out and kill more John G's over and over again. I mean, but I don't know. It's hard to think that there isn't actually a physical, like, because we see him throughout the movie keep going through these scenarios randomly. So it's like, I think maybe that's real, but I think as you watch it, he does say that, like, what he learns is that even if you have this disorder, you can learn by instinct to not do something. And like, he's been doing this for a while, and I guess the instinct to kill John G has just grown so large that he just keeps doing it over and over again. And it just keeps him in this place where he has purpose. For somebody that can't make new memories, his only purpose now is to try to hold on to the memory he has of his wife and revenging her death.
Yeah, and he keeps reliving
the story of that guy,
and he doesn't want to face himself.
I like the fact that he told the story of that guy and the guy and his wife, how his wife Sandy Jenks just want to understand him. Like, she couldn't understand him. The guy kept on getting shocked by pulling the same thing and
that tells you a lot about how he felt about his wife. Like that's a reflection of, I mean, reflections are all through this movie. I mean, his tattoos are in backwards orders that you can only see it in a reflection properly.
In a mirror.
So, I mean, how he treat, in the few flashes we get of his wife, he treats his wife in a certain way, like, it's like questioning her about the book. It's like, why do you read that book so much? Like, kind of giving her a hard time. He obviously had, his relationship with his wife ends up turning bad at a point, and then now he's trying to hold on to a memory that doesn't really, and then he killed his wife. So it's really the story of a serial killer told in backwards order. I mean, really, basically, obviously a psychologically disturbed one, but yeah, I mean, it's in a sense.
And it's an interesting commentary on being stuck in a cycle of trauma, because all he can remember is the traumatic events of losing his wife. Now, it may not be accurate to the reality of how he lost it, but he still feels those emotions constantly. And he keeps having, like, these PTSD, like, like memory flashes and nightmares
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and so he keeps reliving it over and over, and he's stuck in this cycle. And that could be a very much a social commentary on people who get stuck in life in these traumatic loops and can't break free. And the movie says a lot more about mental health than I remember it being. And it's an interesting snapshot of the kind of view of mental health in circa 2000 as opposed to now. Because I while watching the movie, I'm like, he probably really needed to be in some type of special.
Well, he was
someplace.
He was in a hospital.
Yeah, and it feels like he should. Yet again, we don't get any of the backstory of like how long was he there.
What's name tells him to wear new clothes. He changes his clothes to make him look like a detective. Or
that's one thing that's not obvious in the storyline, but it's something that you pick up on in like the commentaries and stuff. Nolan says that he was a patient at one point. That's where the Sammy Jenkins story kind of is from. Is just like his what he went through being in the hospital, and then then getting out, and then going through what he's going through now.
Clearly his rehabilitation, maybe it's a commentary on the rehabilitation not being enough or not being as effective as the institutions may think they are, or maybe it's a commentary on there not being enough resources to fully rehabilitate people in this type of psychological condition.
Well,
it's a lot there.
Andrew, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the thing with Christopher Nolan movies. Okay, we have this story, okay? We have this non-linear story about this guy, and yet there's a message in here about drugs and rehabilitating sick patients with things that we don't understand. So he's got subtext, subplots about things in society that he wants to say, and he uses some of these movies to say some of these things about society and drugs and patients and illness and stuff like that. And that's what he did with Memento in a way. It just doesn't come to the forefront. But when you think about it, when you rewatch it, or wait a minute, he's talking about sick people and how to treat sick people. Are we treating these people the right way? Are we putting them through the?
I don't know that that's like. I don't think that's something that's really at the forefront. Probably of. I don't know that was at the forefront of his mind. Sometimes these things come out of people's work without even that being what they were trying to do. But I think it's there. I think it's under there somewhere. But I think with Nolan, especially with his writing, I think this is. He hasn't gotten to this place where I think he's a lot more what I think people consider him as being more clinical with his like movies. This was still pretty raw, I think, but very, very well thought out. But not as like the dialogue, especially, is not nearly as clinical as it eventually would become, I think. Now, of course, the character has to talk a lot because he has to explain himself all the time.
And he has to explain it to us.
But it makes sense that has to do that. And a lot of his later movies, people complain that there's a lot of exposition dump, especially like something like Inception, where he feels the need to explain the rules of the world that we're in instead of letting us just experience it.
And narration. Same thing Martin Scorsese got complaints about. A lot of narration in Martin Scorsese movies. Nolan's starting to fall into that where he's got these movies where it's a lot of narration to explain the story. And look, I like narration, but like way back in the day, in the 40s, 50s, whatever, there wasn't narration. The characters said what was going on. You watch the characters, you watch these movies. All this narration or these unreliable narrators, that's become a thing of the last, 30 years or so, if you ask me. Don't you guys agree?
I think it all comes in waves.
I would say, because when I'm thinking of film noir, there's a lot of narration in film noir in the 40s. Because the people expressing their inner thoughts outwardly to us as an audience member. And it's interesting you mentioned that about Nolan, how, him being too exposition-y. And the thing is, I think sometimes he's the opposite, to where he doesn't give us a lot to go with. I'm thinking of the movie Tenet. I've seen that movie like 3 times.
I think Tenet's the outlier.
Yeah.
I don't think that hasn't been his running direction, but I think that movie was a little bit of an answer to the critics who say he talks too much in his movies. I think he was like, let me show you a movie where you're not going to understand it at all.
There's not a lot of dialogue in Dunkirk. There's not a lot of dialogue in Dunkirk, is there?
No, it's
No,
not that
Dunkirk
talky.
is more showy than it is,
That's
actual.
why
I think,
it's my favorite Nolan movie. I think is
yeah,
Dunkirk.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, and then like everything kind of organically comes together in the end, way more than I think some of his other movies. And I think Inception things do come organically come to back to the end, but Tenet, you talk about manipulation of time moving forwards, moving backwards. We're in the past, we're in the future. That movie is like a final exam of all of Christopher Nolan's good and bad tendencies, I think, as a filmmaker, as opposed to Memento, which is way more truncated and him manipulating time and story, but doing it on a smaller scale and much more easily digestible. That's why I think this is
yeah.
one of his just tightest movies. Like it's really all meshes very, very well. Because even Insomnia after this would be a little not really messing with time, it's more messing with environment and the time change in environment because of the location in which the Al Pacino character
Also,
is in.
psychological distortion.
Yeah,
I think.
psychological
Lack
mental
of sleep,
distortion which
because of
messes
lack
with
of
the
sleep.
current time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
When you lose sleep, you sometimes lose a lot of cognizant ability that you normally would have if you have plenty of sleep.
and then the Batman movies are rather linear when dealing with time.
Yeah.
Although Dark Knight Rises gets criticized for how much happens in a short amount of time, that's a whole different argument for a whole different thing. How
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne broke his back and he was okay within a few months. But it's a whole thing.
Supposed to be 6 months.
Yeah.
But
His spine was like dislocated, but he just got to put back into place. And
Fucking
we're
Batman,
good to
shut
go.
up.
I know. It's Batman. Leave it alone.
Leave him
Leave it
alone. He's
alone.
Batman.
But one of the things I like about Nolan too is he's really good with using the place as a character, and I thought he did a great job as using L.A. as a character with the hotels and the jumpy like warehouse and the different places that he goes, and you're driving around, you're LA kind of looked like a dumpy area. The whole area that he was in was the hotels and all that stuff was kind of dumpy and stuff like that. And I like that in a movie where you can like Tarantino does that. He can turn LA into like a certain vibe that he's looking for, or same thing what like they did with Seven with David Fincher, turn LA to New York, and it made it look, it had an distinctive look to it. I love how he made the look of this place look such LA, like what a shady looking area this whole movie took place in.
I think Memento also had one of the best opening credits with the reverse shot, the picture, coming back out of exposure.
I love that.
Yeah,
talk about the whole Polaroid thing. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Technology.
Yeah.
Polaroids. Nobody really uses Polaroids anymore, unless it's kind of like a novelty thing. But Polaroids were super popular for
like you would like even after that you'd start getting cell phones, and so it was like he nailed something at a time when after that, boom, it was gone. Forget about Polaroids after that. You never were going to get anything with. So that's 2000 Polaroids, and then bam, cell phones, and then forget about.
And even digital cameras started to become a thing around that time, where you could, with the little SD cards that you could print out pictures at home yourself through your home printer, or you could have them print out at local places. But in terms of like actual film cameras were starting to phase out a little bit at the time. Then cell phone cameras would kick in like 5 years later.
He captured something at the right time to where if he didn't capture it, boom, forget about it. You couldn't.
Could you imagine making this movie now?
That would make sense at that
time. I was
really
going to say, Dan, could you imagine making this movie now with modern technology?
No
I mean,
way.
he could. I mean, in theory, the Guy Pearce character could just record everything through his cell phone. He'd never forget anything. He wouldn't have to piece anything together. It would be there all for him.
Once again, Steven, you picked this movie. You have a reason for picking this movie. Nolan's such a great filmmaker. He has subtext about drugs and treatment and that stuff, that he's got a piece of technology that if he used it a year later, if he tried to make a movie about this 1 year later, it wouldn't have been effective. He used it at the right time to where it made the movie so much more interesting because you wanted to know what was written on those Polaroids. And then every time he took a photo, it was important to the story. I mean, there's so much context to everything he does in his movies. You just got to really pay attention to everything.
Yeah,
It makes sense in hindsight as well, because we know, ironically, his movies are so technically modern, but also like his tendencies are also relatively ancient in terms of technology wise. We know that he doesn't use a smartphone. We know that he doesn't like even like use emails and stuff like that. That he still uses like flip phones and things like that. And he sends people the the screenplays through the mail and things like that. So it's so interesting how in hindsight, this movie capitalizing or utilizing that type of what now we see as ancient technology, considering of what we know of Nolan now.
This is a 26-year-old movie. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is that old.
Isn't that crazy that this is a 26-year-old movie?
And this movie, like during the 2000s, this was one of the cool movies. Like not everybody knew about this movie. It was one of the cool movies, I think. It's one of those movies where like your cool movie savvy friend would tell you about, and you would go out and rent, because there was no streaming back then, and you would go out and rent or buy the DVD, and you would watch and be like, oh my god, my mind is blown up. I didn't know movies could be made like this. Has any movie ever been made like this before? You don't know. No. It's one of those types of movies, specifically if you catch it at the right time. Even if you catch it now, I still think it's incredibly innovative. But in the 2000s watching this, it would absolutely blow your mind.
Was this a Sundance movie? Did this premiere at Sundance or something like that?
I'm not sure. I don't think it was Sundance. I think it was maybe one of the later ones. Probably like.
I say he didn't produce it. Let me go check to see the dates on this.
This no one came out of the Sundance era where it's all these indie filmmakers came out of this the 90s, where you're like, now you look at these guys: Wes Anderson, Richard Linklater, Christopher Nolan, Steven Soderbergh.
This was a Venice Film Festival.
Venice, okay, so Venice. So it was Venice in 99,
2000,
and then came out in theaters after Venice.
Yeah, it came out in the theaters in 2001.
Okay.
In the States, yeah.
In the States, yeah.
Okay, so Venice in 2000.
It was at the Sundance in 2001, January 2001.
Also went from Venice to Sundance. Then it came out. Yep. Okay, all right. So then it was. So he was an indie. It was an indie movie, and then it went through the film festivals. Then it got released, picked up by Miramax, obviously, and then bam, out the theaters, and then the rest is history. So he is a part of that, and it's like, you say to yourself, look at the movies that these guys, all these filmmaker, these film festival guys, that now they're like the best filmmakers we got going, besides like Scorsese and Spielberg. All these guys that came out of the 90s, Nolan and Soderbergh and Linklater and Wes Anderson, and I mean, just there's so many names.
Sean Baker.
Who do you say? Sean Baker, Kevin Smith, And now they're like,
I don't think Kevin Smith's one of the best ones, but okay.
Well, he's one of the biggest names.
He's around.
Names. He's one of the biggest names that came out of that era of the 90s.
For sure, he's a big name, but he's not. I wouldn't say he's one of the best filmmakers that came out of that.
No, but I mean, he made some great films in the 90s.
Made a couple good movies.
Put his name on the map, and
guess.
Now people know him. Various all kinds of
sure I know he's more of a great personality to me than he's
I mean,
he's a good filmmaker. He's not a great filmmaker.
Well, think about The Last Picture Show in 1971. That's
Peter Bogdanovich.
What does Peter Bogdanovich do after The Last Picture Show? He guest appears in movies.
It was The Last Picture Show. It was the last one.
Well,
what does it matter?
He doesn't do a lot after like his big like breakout movie that everybody knows.
Didn't he do Targets?
That was before that.
Or was that before that? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's like Kevin Smith is like the Peter Bogdanovich of this era in a way. He's
sure.
like
that's an interesting comparison.
That is an interesting comparison for sure.
It's a more of a personality that we know. Same thing with Sidney Pollack. Like how many? I mean, big movies did Sidney Pollack do after like Out of Africa and stuff? He kind of guest appeared, and he was like more of a speaking guest and a talking guest on like special features and stuff like that, and then he shows up in Eyes Wide Shut, which is kind of a surprising turn for him to be in there, but Nolan really is part of that thing, and he just transcended and became like the Spielberg.
He didn't spend much time in the indie realm. He made the he made the couple movies, and then he was like
when
shot
he jumped,
in the studio.
When Warner Brothers signed him for Insomnia, boom, the rest of his career was just off and racing after that.
Well,
I think he was a Warner Brothers guy.
Yeah, I think what you said, I was talking to my friend Carl about this. He said this to me. We were talking about Tarantino too, because he's a big Tarantino guy. And he was saying, like, because we were comparing the two together, and he was like, the thing about these two guys is Tarantino thinks he knows everything, and Christopher Nolan does know everything, but he doesn't realize that everybody doesn't know everything. He's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Tarantino thinks he's like the smartest filmmaker out there, and Nolan is. But he
plays it down.
It's
like he's not the biggest.
Nolan
guy
is one of our most intelligent filmmakers, and he doesn't act like he is. He just does what he does.
I've been watching dozens of interviews with him the last 3 or 4 days, and it's just like he always plays it down that he's not the best. Man, we ran into this problem, and we had this issue, and it was a tough shoot, and this and that and the other. Wow, he makes a freaking masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, comparing Nolan to Tarantino is like comparing
apples to
oranges. Vastly different things.
Vastly different.
Because just their movies are so different, and their styles are so different, and their mentality when it comes to movies are so different. But they both have, like you're saying, they both have that vast knowledge of the movies previously. And if you do some investigating, you can see those influences on the screen. Tarantino makes it a lot more obvious. We all know this.
Obvious.
Nolan, it's in there, but it's homage in the fancy, classy version of homage. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
he's
not ripping off literal images.
Yeah, like Interstellar, people says it's his version of Solaris, him doing a Tarkovsky film, and you can see those elements in there, but he's also doing other things within it. Even Kill Bill is very much Tarantino's love letters to Western, like spaghetti westerns, and like Japanese films as well. Like part 1 is Japanese films, part 2 is westerns. Django Unchained, which for some reason plays all the time on television nowadays.
Really?
On Showtime, they play it like every night. I'll just have it on in the background, so it's on all the time. That's all spaghetti western. If you've seen spaghetti westerns, you see all the influences in there. Like literally, the name Django is from a spaghetti western series of movies.
And he's in the movie.
Yeah, and Nolan takes certain elements from the past that we've seen in other movies. Like I just said, Tarkovsky's Solaris, 2001: A Space Odyssey, that's all in Interstellar. I mean, even the Odyssey, you're taking references to previous epics or previous adaptations of the Odyssey, because there have been many of them. So he's taking all of those elements and incorporating them into his movies, but he's doing it in a classier, more subtle way, more homage as opposed to
he's trying to put his own identity, his own stamp on cinema history, instead of just making nice.
It's interesting how you mentioned comparing those two, because people asked Nolan recently about about Quentin Tarantino says that he's only going to make 10 movies, and I think Nolan's response to that was, that's the way Quentin wants to do it. You can do that. But to me, it's like, I think he said something about like, he treats like every movie as if it's his last movie, which I thought is very fascinating, because, because he pours everything into the current movie he's working on, because it could be his last in theory, as opposed to like being, this isn't my last, my next one's gonna be my last, or I'm only gonna do 3 more movies, so that one will be my last. It's a different type of mindset, when it comes to production.
That's why we didn't get the critic, because well, I don't want that to be my last movie. It was like, just make the movie.
We should probably stop, because I could go all day about how I feel about Tarantino at the present moment. And that has nothing to do with what we should be talking about.
Yeah, it really does. But it's an interesting comparison, because they're two very popular filmmakers, and it does lead us to like kind of segueing into the Odyssey and segueing into this idea that there are not many filmmakers similar to Nolan or Tarantino to where people go to the movie theater because it's the new Nolan movie. It's
Sure.
the new Tarantino movie. It's the new Spielberg movie. There's not many of those directors left. You know, Scorsese's one of them as well.
Villeneuve, I put him on that.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele is now up there where you're like, oh, Jordan Peele, okay, let's go see what he's got for us, you know. But I think what we forgot to say is I like the fact that Nolan uses the text or whatever it is he's writing, if he's adapting a book or if he's adapting an ancient text like the Odyssey, he really puts a lot of work in using that material to turn into. So when you're watching something, you're getting something that he worked hard on to get to that script to where you're getting that movie, and you're not getting some wishy-washy kind of version of something. And I love the Coen Brothers version of the Odyssey, but you're not going to get that version of the Odyssey from Christopher Nolan. He's going to really show his love of that text and really put a lot of effort in when he writes that screenplay based off of that text. And the Coen Brothers version is a great version. And if you haven't seen the Coen Brothers version, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I highly recommend it. It's a fun version of the Odyssey. But
yeah. I mean, Nolan is somebody that I think is not going to do it until he feels 100% about it. And that's what you want from your writer directors. But to finish up Memento, before we get into the Odyssey review, Memento is an all-time favorite for me. It's definitely kind of top 3 Nolan films for me. That's why I wanted to bring it here to talk about it.
That's very high praise. I haven't done a Nolan ranking, I don't think ever. So maybe a good time to reevaluate his films, because I always forget.
Let's have our letterboxes.
I may have to go on Letterboxd and create a list.
Make a list. That's what
it's been made.
Steven saw my list when I posted it on Facebook, and then he went and did his list.
I don't think I had seen this movie since I bought this Blu-ray, like back in 2011. Like I don't think I'd seen it in 15 years. So it was a nice rewatch. The Prestige is another one I have to go back to rewatch.
I haven't watched that either.
I mean, Inception I've seen so many times. Interstellar I've seen so many times. Tenet I've seen a couple of times. The Odyssey, I was telling the guys earlier, I know people who've seen the movie 5-6 times already. It's been out for like 3 days. This is madness.
You guys are crazy.
I was like doing great when I saw it 3 times.
No, it's not good enough, man.
Clearly.
But yeah, let's go into it. We'll start off by kind of giving general impressions before we talk a little spoilers, even though it is, a story that's been around forever. It's not really something you can spoil. We'll let Dan go first since he's seen it 3 times. He wins. Let's not get too talky. Let's not go on forever. But Dan, what did you think of the Odyssey?
No, I really love the movie. I needed to see it 3 times because I didn't have the best experience the first time around. It was a 70 millimeter screening in a small little theater, which it didn't do it any justice. So then one of my other screenings I saw it was in IMAX. I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. And then I saw it in Dolby, which usually for me, I love Dolby, but wasn't as good as the IMAX. So that IMAX screening really did it for me and really made this movie worth. Well, I should just go back on Letterboxd and change my rating from 4.5 stars to 5. But yeah, I love Matt Damon. If you know me, I'm wearing a hat, Boston. I'm a Boston guy. I love Matt Damon. I'm a Matt Damon guy. So I was really rooting for him.
It would have been he should have been just in his normal Boston kind of like accent.
What a fucking bad.
It'd have been a nice callback to
Harvey Keitel.
Last Temptation. Yeah.
What is interesting is like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, they only bring out their Massachusetts/Boston accents when they're doing movies set in that area. Like regular time, you wouldn't notice them having an accent.
Which I love.
Yeah, it just you gotta be. It's situational, I guess.
Even John Krasinski and Chris Evans, they both do it, and you're like, because they're both from that area too.
Yeah.
And you would know it if you didn't hear them talk in those accents, But they do it like in interviews and they do it in special features and they'll goof around and stuff like that. But no, the Odyssey, I just think it's like one of the. it's on the level of one of the great epics of like Spartacus or Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments, Gladiator. I would definitely put it in the top 5 or 6 greatest kind of epic kind of movies, like a Lawrence of Arabia, in that conversation of swords and sandals.
Getting a little crazy here. Like getting like
I really do.
I know you've seen it 3 times, but I mean, let's calm down here.
I think the cast is phenomenal as well. I mean, John Leguizamo. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's good. Andrew just saw it before this podcast, so he's got the freshest, I think, eyes on this thing, and I haven't really got a chance to hear what he thinks yet. So I'd like to hear what Andrew thinks.
Oh, okay.
Of the Odyssey.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the story because, as probably many people in their younger days, were fascinated by Greek mythology to no end. Just because I feel like we were inundated with so much Greek mythology. If you grew up in the '90s, with various TV shows, movies, animated series. I mean, the animated Hercules was massive when I was a kid. I mean, you had Kevin Sorbo's Hercules, was it the Hercules series, Xena the Warrior Princess, all that stuff from Sam Raimi and his company in the '90s was really carrying the torch of Greek mythology. And the Odyssey is a classic literature story. I mean, it's taught in schools. It's part of summer reading programs. I read it in college for the first time. That's where I first read it. I have a couple of copies of it. It's an interesting text because there are different versions of it, and the language can be very different. And it's, like I said, it's been adapted so many times. But this version of it is really epic because we have the modern filmmaking techniques, and no one. And I'm going to say this: people may call us Nolan fanboys or whatever you want to deride us. No one's really doing movie productions on this scale like Christopher Nolan is.
Nope.
There are very few people who are on this type of gargantuan level of prestige film production. Denis Villeneuve is another one who's really on that level as well. If you've seen the Dune movies recently and the one that's coming out later this year, it looks to be similarly. But man, what Nolan does in his movies, and the fact that a lot of it is done practically, shot on location, certain areas of the world, and harsh conditions that you could tell in this movie. I can imagine what these special features are going to be like with the making of this movie for on location shooting and stuff like that is going to be extraordinary. The way in which he does in-camera techniques. There are giants in this movie, and those are people in costumes, but they're really tall people. And the way in which the cameras are angled, it manipulates our perspective of that.
Forced perspective.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Thank you, Stephen. Forced perspective.
Yeah, it's similar to what
the Cyclops in one shot, then melds it by filming those guys in a forward shot to make the Cyclops.
They did a similar thing with the giants on the
island. That's what I was referencing the giants, which look just absolutely massively towering figures against the soldiers who are much, much smaller and much smaller scale. And the way in which he did that is extraordinary. The storm scenes, everything, the production.
The Cyclops was more a composite job more than anything.
Yeah,
because they built a puppet that is the size a 60-foot puppet, and then you had like a real cave, and they shot
Bill Irwin.
Yeah, they shot an actor separately.
And they shot an actor in makeup.
Yeah, and composited him differently in the scene than with the other actors.
It's it reminded me very similar of what Guillermo del Toro does for his films. He's another one of those directors.
Pigs and Cersei, same thing.
We'll get to that.
It was a mixture of genres. It is the sword and sandal epic. It's a character journey story. It's fantasy. It's mythology. I mean, there's so many different meldings of genres in here, and it's all balanced so well. And the movie's 3 hours long, and I swear, if this movie was an extra hour, I don't think I would have felt it. You know what I mean? It was so engrossing of a story that it was just absolutely captivating because the pacing of the movie was constantly pushing forward. Odysseus, portrayed by Matt Damon very well. I thought this was some of Matt Damon's best work. Him going on this character and physical journey, trying to get home from Troy. And the movie kind of opened in a similar way in which I thought it would be kind of the aftermath of the events of the Iliad. And we kind of see how that springboards our adventure forward with Odysseus and his men trying to get home to Ithaca. I thought the acting was really good by several people. I thought Anne Hathaway was really good. I just kind of wish there was more of her. Like I said, John Leguizamo, you guys mentioned, is really good. And Matt Damon I thought was really good as well. Hamish Patel, who was kind of like his second in command, who was just, kind of butting heads with him the whole way because, you're frustrated. Every single place you go, bad things keep happening. Also, they were able to work mythology and the Greek gods within the story to where it's not overpowering, to where it meshes well with the human story, so it's not too fantasy. So it's not too kind of campy or over the top. I thought that was really well done. It's a monumental film, and I think we kind of knew that going into it, that it was going to be, at the very least epic. It's so different compared to his previous movie in Oppenheimer. I mean,
so different in the sense of its story and visually, but like it's thematically very similar. Actually,
yeah, it's different in the sense in the way in which it approaches the main protagonist. We have Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer, and we have Odysseus in the Odyssey. But the way the character journeys that they're going on is told in such a vastly different way. But yet, both movies I found them to be so engrossing. The Oppenheimer is essentially about them creating the atomic bomb, and this movie is more of a, like I said, a voyage, a journey, an adventure, an action film. And yet they both still so entertaining to watch.
I think they both thematically work together because they're both movies about the violent, what happens with war. I mean, the violence of war. They both, specifically Odysseus's character, and we get in our only real glimpse of a god in this story is Athena, who's played by Zendaya, and the only reason he sees her is because he's projecting his guilt from somebody he witnessed die during their sacking of Troy. Right. And so like it's all playing on to I think the core themes of the Odyssey that he chose to focus on, which is that the consequences of war, the consequences that go beyond just the victory, the things that happen to all the and that they talk about like the people from the sea, that's just like this existential dread of their civilization, like
and
ending,
the whole journey with Odysseus trying to get home, taking 10 years. Once you get to kind of the third act of the movie, it becomes clear to you, I think as a viewer, more clear that thematically what's been going on this whole time is in the back of his mind, he probably doesn't want to go home because of how ashamed he is of the things that they had to do during a 10-year-long war in a foreign land and having to do all kinds of things and all the trauma that goes with that. We talked about trauma in Memento. We're talking about trauma in this movie and how these characters are dealing with it. In his mind, psychologically, he probably doesn't want to get home because of his shame. So therefore, he hits all of these roadblocks along the way.
Also, I know shame is how he sacrificed some of his men to get further along in the journey.
And that takes a toll on him as well. Yeah. That just adds to the burden of what's going on with him in his mind. And I think Matt Damon conveys those things very well throughout the story, especially once we get to that third act of the movie. There's a lot going on in this movie, and I can understand why people are seeing it multiple times to kind of absorb all of it, because like I said, 3 hours is a long time to absorb an entire movie.
Who was that guy that came out of the dirt? Was that? I kept on thinking it was Liam Neeson, but I don't think it was. No, I think it's a different actor. No, I thought it was Liam Neeson though for a second there, and I'm like, no, the voice sounds a little different. And I know that voice of that actor, and I just don't I didn't look up the whole cast of people and say, oh, that's who it is. I said, I know this person, the guy that came out of the dirt and gave him that speech about.
Oh, that's James Remar.
James
Remar.
I knew I recognized James Remar's voice. I said, man, I know this voice, and I just can't plus. But I thought at first it was Liam Neeson because I heard a rumor that Liam Neeson was in this. I said, is that Liam Neeson? No, it's James Remar.
Nice to see James Remar.
Yeah, you have character actors like James Remar, and then you have Bill Irwin in these crazy scenes.
You got what's her name? What's her name? Plays just like a servant inside the castle for 2 seconds.
Mia Goth.
Goth.
I forgot she was in the movie.
Yeah.
I thought you showed up. I'm like, wait a minute.
And small role. People just want to be in movies with Christopher Nolan movies.
I mean,
you know?
if you're just in a small part in one movie, and then maybe you're in the star of his
You're the
next
star
movie.
of the next movie, like
yeah,
Cillian Murphy. He's like a supporting character in Dunkirk, and then or the Dark Knight trilogy. He's not much in any of those, and bam, he wins an Oscar for being an Oscar
for starring in a movie. Yeah,
and Matt Damon's been in a couple of them in supporting roles as well, Interstellar and Oppenheimer, and then bam, he gets this role. Now there's a chance. I mean, knock on wood. Hopefully, I'd love to see him get a nomination for Best Actor for this. You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
we're all in the same.
Talk about this, Steve.
Yeah, no, we're all in the same boat. We're all just like, Nolan brosing out. We're Nolan brosing out. Because that's what we are, because we love the movie so much.
How about the controversies? For 5 seconds, let's talk about the I'm telling you right now, guys, I think Elliot Page was incredible. I don't know why anybody would complain about Elliot Page.
Well, they complained about it because they didn't know what the fuck they were talking, because they didn't see the movie yet.
Yeah, because people were just conjecting without seeing the movie.
They didn't even know what the character. They kept saying, "Oh, he's playing. Yeah, I heard he's playing Achilles." Yeah, no, you didn't even know. Sinon is actually a character in Greek mythology. You can look it up. And is the trickster, is the person that helps trick the Trojan army into taking the horse in. Now they do change the kind of like how it all goes down, and they use the character as a way of growth for the Odysseus character. He kind of uses Sinon to do it, and then sacrifices Sinon, and then gets a chance to talk to Sinon again later in hell when they go to hell. He gets to kind of answer. He has to answer for some of his sins, and that's I think that
plays
part
into
of
the character really well.
It's really the part of the journey of Odysseus that he's learning through his journey how much he's done wrong in his past, and by the time he gets to Calypso and then gets his memory wiped while he's there, and spends 7 years stuck there.
Flowers. I didn't know.
I remember this distinctly.
I didn't know flowers were that good.
Yeah. I remember
this is the only part of, I told Dan this is the only part of the movie I wish they would have maybe fleshed out slightly more, because like in the book, I know, didn't he like have kids with Calypso, and there's like more than
there's
just
a whole storyline with Calypso that they didn't have time to really get into.
Well, remember Peter, what's his name in the Lord of the Rings? Peter Jackson completely knocks out.
Oh yeah, it doesn't bother me.
I understand about having to cut things out because of adaptation and stuff like that.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, but the fact that he was there so long isn't conveyed very well. That dude, you were here for so long. Like
they kind of they gloss over it, but they give us enough information to serve the plot of having him move on. Like why? What's the context of why he's here, how he's here, and how can he
out of there?
How can he move on? Because she's trying. She's played by Charlize Theron very very well, and she's trying to get him to kind of remember who he is and what his goal is, and remember his life and move on from there, because she's actually fallen in love with him.
I was going to say she kept him there in the first place because
she wants him to be happy ultimately.
She fell in love with him, so she kept him there because she loved him.
Then she's like, if I really love this person,
which sounds amazing, by the way. Oh, Charlize Theron wants me to stay here with her.
Sounds like misery. If you ask
me.
In
the book, she wanted him to stay with her forever, to be her immortal husband.
Yeah,
that's what she wanted. That was her end goal.
They hint at that in the movie. She's like, we could just stay here forever. He's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to stay. I want to die one day.
Yeah, so she basically and that lotus leaf that he keeps eating, it just keeps his mind numb to his pain and trauma. So he kind of forgets it all, and that's a whole other commentary going on of dealing with trauma through avoidance,
burying your head in the sand.
Burying your head in the sand, the old ostrich thing that Nolan kind of is also going with, connecting back to Memento, dealing with trauma.
I mean,
in another way.
That connects back to Inception.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
very
Inception.
true.
Yeah.
Oh, with the Cobb character, the
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio character dealing with his past trauma and having it literally affect his present
His
throughout
wife.
the entirety of that
His-
movie.
What he did to his wife in that movie, just like with
And it keeps invading his mind no
what
matter how far he pushes it down.
I mean,
He
Odysseus's choice to go to war this has now affected his whole family's life.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah, his
just the choice to go.
just
I
the
mean,
choice to go, it's
him
affected
him going to
everything.
war lasted 10 years, and that was just the war.
Yeah,
And then we forget that then it was 10 more years
just to
until
get back.
to get
And
back.
we got
Yeah.
that as exposition from John Bernthal, how he says, "Yeah, we've been sitting on this beach for however many years,
Forever.
you know?
Yeah.
And so we get that. I love how we get so much exposition in the most unopportune scenes and moments, but we get information that moves the plot and the story forward, which is what I love about the script of this movie. Really, it's so understated. The script is about all the little details. You got to pay attention to just the most throwaway lines like that one from John Bernthal.
Yeah, we talk.
And what is so interesting also, I mean, they touch a little bit about like the events of the Iliad and what started that whole war, Helen of Troy being the face that launched 1,000 ships. It feels like there's it feels like by this point there's so much like regret over all of that. There's so much like unspoken, regret of doing all of those things and going to war for so long over something that they don't consider important anymore.
Well,
You know what I mean?
They admit in the story that she was not the reason they went to war. It was about trade routes.
Yeah, it was more ambition that was going on there, specifically with Agamemnon, the John Bernthal character's older brother, who was basically doing it for the glory of it all and the money and all that stuff.
And then that's why I say this connects very well to Oppenheimer. It's very much a commentary on the world, specifically the world of men who choose to go to war and typically for the reasons that have nothing to do with honor or anything like that. It's about usually about money and greed and power and and wielding it in different ways, and in this case, there, like you said, there's this like line of regret down to like Helen saying like, tell your mother I'm sorry that this all happened because of me, apparently, or at least that's the way it's perceived.
There's a moment at that banquet with Telemachus, the Tom Holland character, where where John Bernthal says, this is my wife Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships, and he almost says it dismissively, like, can you believe this joke? You know what I mean? Like, this is what it was all about, but it's really not, like we've been saying. It's so underlying and so telling about like what they actually really cared about, and then it goes back to like kind of how the whole story is being framed, being told by a bard, like what bards say is like there is not probably the truth of it all. And what we know from the Odyssey itself, it's a fictional story. It's a mythology. It's not real. It's a legend. It's a fabrication. It was written thousands of years after whatever event occurred. I mean, it's a whole interesting mesh of things within this movie that are social commentaries about how we view these types of stories now, how we view myths, and people think they're true.
Is true. 10% of everything we say is the truth. 90% is unfactual or joking or just
everything. Really?
90% of what we say is non-factual.
A lot of liars out there.
All right, Dan. I'm never going to believe anything you fucking say anymore now.
Nobody's telling the truth, Andrew. Nobody's telling the truth.
So that's the end of your critic career right now. No, I mean, we could go into a lot of different facets. I think Dan hinted at it earlier. I think the scene that, other than the Cyclops scene, I think where everybody's talking about the Cersei scene, the horror scene in the movie, that everybody's like, oh, Nolan needs to do a horror movie now. And I'm like, guys, let's calm down. I mean, it's great. I love the scene. I think it's
so creative.
It was so creative. It was something we have never seen Nolan really tap into in that way. And it was very surprising. I loved it.
all practical.
Yeah, all
Everything is
the
practical.
distorting of the faces and the just I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody. He was like, I've been wanting to work with Samantha Morton forever and ever, and of
She's
course
a
she
great
plays the
actress.
character. And then she's like, she's gonna get. I mean, she could literally get nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this role. And she's in what? How many minutes do you think of the movie? She
3
was in?
minutes.
10,
You know?
maybe. I don't think it's 10.
I don't
It's
think
not a
it's
lot.
3 minutes.
It's his movies are so much edits. The scenes don't last that long. So
Yeah, the
honestly,
editing
I
for
felt
a
like that
3-hour
lasted
movie,
longer
the
than 3
editing's really
minutes.
good.
I mean, maybe
Yeah.
like 5 minutes.
Because I
It's
mean,
not
Judy
a
Dench
lot.
wins an Oscar for 8 minutes of screen time. I felt like if Samantha Morton was in this movie longer than 8 minutes. I
mean, she was morphing guys' faces for about a minute, and she like brought them in to eat food. That probably all lasted like 3 minutes. And
That's
then she
an
had to
interesting scene.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to get out of that scene too. Just like the themes in that scene are very fascinating to me.
Yeah,
Her
yeah.
and sister
Well,
don't
the
get
best,
along,
the,
so she turned her into a bird. Okay, I guess sisters don't
Well,
get
the-
along.
well,
so,
the-
yeah, that's
the
true. My
interesting-
sister turned her a bird. Okay.
yeah, the interesting part is that when she's like turning them all back and says, "Go back to your disguises." Your disguises.
Well, the
So,
idea,
yeah.
well, also the idea, like she turned them. She's probably done that to many, many people.
Well, we saw
the
that.
animal-
Yeah.
You saw all the
She's-
animals on the island.
Yeah, but she does it out of fear and anxiety and nervousness of what could possibly happen, because I'm assuming she's had previous traumatic events that have led her to believe that men do terrible things to women, especially women who are alone on an island. So just to completely cut off anything that could possibly happen, her immediately default thing is to turn them into something harmless, like animals.
Which is another kind of reflection of what we're the themes of the story. You know, men are so reactionary, and their ultimate first reaction is to go to violence instead of talk about anything or actually try to understand anything or anybody. At least in this, that's obviously that's not all men, but that's how the large majority of how the world's being governed at the time works, is that we need to just keep taking more and taking more.
Oh yeah, it's a very patriarchal society.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that's happening on Ithaca, which we haven't really talked about at all, is very patriarchal. This idea that this queen needs to remarry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all of these male suitors are there. They're all like doing essentially whatever they want. And taking advantage of the situation and trying to better themselves because they're men, essentially.
Yeah.
That's a whole other underlying thing. But yeah, the movie
it's great.
It's epic in many ways.
many ways. We could go all night probably on this thing, but like I think we're all on the same page. We think Nolan just pumped out another masterpiece, and now we're just waiting to see what he's going to do next, and we might not hear about that for a while.
Looks like 6 years, possibly. Like you said, 6.
Maybe.
We're not even going to hear about it for 3 years.
I think you can't take Nolan at his word completely.
Okay. All right.
I think he could say something now, but then like he gets an idea and things could happen quickly. You never know.
All right.
But that is it for our Nolan Bro podcast. All about Nolan.
It's a Nolan Bro out.
Yeah.
Well, it just worked out that you were doing Memento, and then we can talk about all of us got the chance to see Odyssey tonight. So remember, we were going to record this a different night, and if we did, maybe we wouldn't have all been able to see the Odyssey, so we wouldn't have this conversation.
Yeah,
so it kind of worked out that way in a good way, in ways,
It did. So, but that's going to be it for this movie down memory lane. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. Andrew, did you pick one for next time?
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. So. Yeah, I'm going. So it is my next pick. I'm not sure when we're going to be doing it, but whenever
it'll be next month, hopefully.
Okay, whenever the time occurs. I think I'm going. I've been thinking about this lately. I recently saw a Criterion Closet video that brought up these movies, so I thought maybe it was time to get into them here on Movies Down Memory Lane. And I'm going to be doing Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise, because I don't think we've talked about it yet.
No,
and it's my favorite of the Before trilogy. And I thought it's an appropriate time now to talk about this movie because it's meant so much to me over the years.
Awesome. Love it.
Great. Great.
Love
I
it.
know
It's gonna make me
Steven's-
want to watch all three though. But yeah.
True.
I might just stick to the first two and not watch the third one.
Oh, I love the third one.
I hate the third one.
I love
Oh,
it. I love
Controversy.
it.
Save that for to talk
We'll
about in the
save it for
episode.
we'll save it for the talk. Yeah. But thanks, friends. We will see you on the next trip down memory lane, and have a good one.